Jonathan Burroughs, the jump cuts in Virginia. How the hell did you do that?
Oh man, where to begin? I guess, how technical do you want me to be, Ben?
I think you can get pretty technical.
So, well, actually, I'll be upfront because I don't want. I imagine you'll have other game developers listening to this, and I don't want to make it sound like it was, this incredible technical triumph. If anything, it was sort of using techniques that I really took for granted and have been using in a variety of games that I've worked on. Like my background is in studio development. I've been sort of working in games for at least 10 years, and kind of particularly working on, say, action adventure games, linear games, games which are about level design. You'll find yourself just in the course of testing your levels using debug tools that allow you to teleport around a level. So say you've got a bug, or you're working on level design right at the end of a sequence of scripting, you'll want to skip right to the end so you can focus on that a little bit. And so you might have a system that's just a debug tool that'll never be visible to the end user, which allows you to, at the press of a button, teleport across the map, skip straight ahead. And that is essentially a cut occurring. But of course, I would have worked on games with this kind of feature countless times and never perceived it as being like film editing at all. That I'd never make that conceptual link. Now, clearly, Brendan Chung, when he made 30 Flights of Loving, he made that conceptual leap and was able to see, this kind of fairly, this fairly run-of-the-mill kind of piece of functionality can have narrative meaning and can be completely analogous to how cuts occur in film and TV. And I think that's the most incredible aspect of 30 Flights of Loving, that he made this sort of conceptual leap. And then furthermore, I think in the abstract, if you were to think of the language of film and language of games, I don't think you'd necessarily intuitively think, oh, well, cutting should work in a game. And so I think it's fantastic that it does, and 30 Flights demonstrated that it works so seamlessly. And so I remember in the early days of Virginia, when we'd first set up Variable State, myself and Terry Kenny, the game's co-director, and we played 30 Flights of Loving just kind of by chance, and saw the great potential there, and saw what it added to storytelling in games, and knew we had to do something with it.
I don't understand. I mean, you say it's not that big of a deal technically, but all you hear about in games is how tough it is to load the geometry. Like the Tomb Raider, the recent one's a good example, where there's all those areas where Lara has to kind of like shimmy slowly through areas, or in Uncharted, they have to have a slidey thing so they can offload the geometry before. Like, how are you able to jump and just create that geometry right there? Doesn't it result in pop-in?
So I think, I guess part of what we're quite fortunate Virginia is, I guess, it's a very linear experience, and so it's very deterministic. Like you can always, when is the right time to stream in the next piece of geometry and have that loaded, ready to go. It did become a bit tricky. Like if you played the game, towards the end of the game, the cuts are happening really quite quickly. And so we needed to be loading several kind of scenes ahead, or loading bundles of scenes in advance and having them there in memory, but with the visibility switched off. But I guess the advantage is, because it's only a small team working on Virginia, and we've had to be practical with things like the concept, the complexity, of the game geometry and things like that. It's not the most memory intensive game there is. Like we do have to use streaming because it would be impossible to load the whole game into memory at once. But because of the linearity, because of the simple geometry, perhaps we have it slightly easier than other games.
So because there's fewer objects to actually interact with, that's what results in just being able to jump around then?
More that when you're in any particular scene, just because of the art style, that there aren't that many polygons compared to, say, something like, I imagine one of our more complex environments maybe has, I'm just guessing here, maybe is as complicated as the whole of Lara Croft or something like that.
Okay.
Because it's quite a pared back art style.
So what would you like to see for the future of jump cuts in games? Do you think it's fertile ground for other people to experiment with?
I think so. I think I would like to believe so. I feel when you've got a legacy of 100 years of filmmaking, and even today people are coming up with imaginative edits and creative ways of cutting between scenes, and we've just done one little 2-hour game based on someone else's kind of 10 to 15 minute game. Like I certainly, from a filmmaking perspective, I think you could come up with new and original cuts and perhaps new and original cuts that could only exist in the context of a real-time game experience as well. So I think absolutely it's fertile ground. I'd love to see more games do it.
Do you think, I mean, but you talk about how Virginia has relatively simple geometry to load in. Does that require that games that do jump cuts in the future also have a more simplistic art style and fewer things to interact with? Or do you think consoles will eventually get to a point where a game like Uncharted can just have crazy jump cuts going throughout it?
Well, I kind of think actually, if you have a game, say, that has in-engine cutscenes, so I think Uncharted is probably a good example of that. To my mind, they're not pre-rendered cutscenes.
Right.
Certainly, a game like I guess the most recent Metal Gear Solid has in-engine cutscenes, and those will have cinematic cuts. Admittedly, they probably have to take decisions like a scene will only be in one environment, so you're cutting camera positions, you're not necessarily cutting geometry, but I would have thought there'd be ways to optimize that, clever ways of partitioning up environments, so you could do quick cuts with more complex geometry. I would have thought. I feel like Virginia has hardly tested sort of the PlayStation and Xbox hardware. Like we went there, that wasn't our ambition of the game to and beyond our resources as well. So I would imagine a company with more resources would be able to do incredible sophisticated things with the editing technique.
Yeah. Also, what real quick, what happened in Virginia?
Oh, as in the game itself?
Yeah, I'm just messing with you. It's a complicated game. I don't know if you got that impression.
I'll never tell.
Perfect.